24/7 care. I fill in when I need to. We couldn't take him from the Cleveland Clinic main campus to a nursing home with everything going on.
No.
So I pushed the broadcast button and people are starting to stream in. We already have 10 that I see. Welcome everybody. We're waiting for everyone to join.
Mike, will we see video of those that are here?
You won't,
okay,
because that would just be too many people.
Okay.
So I have 16 right now. And I figured we'd give them the Memphis 10, not 10, the Memphis 5.
You're generous down in Memphis, Mike. Yeah, we have the Cleveland 1.
Yeah, I would prefer to be in Cleveland because I'm kind of like a Lombardi time kind of guy. But, 10 o'clock mass in Memphis starts at 10 after.
It starts at 10 after, or that's when people show up?
That's when people show up. And that's seems to be the language here on when people show up on time. So I have 2 o'clock right now on my computer screen.
We're an hour early. That's good. All right, we'll go ahead and get started and let people catch up as needed. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the President's Forum of Cleveland webinar event. If you're familiar with our organization, the Entrepreneurship Institute, you know that most of what we do are live events, and obviously that is something we're not doing right now, but hope to be doing again just as quickly as possible. So in the interim, we're still looking for ways to provide value to small and mid-market business owners across the country within our chapters. And of course, one of our chapters is here in Cleveland. Just want to recognize the partners that have helped us put together this event this afternoon. And then I'm going to turn it over to our co-moderator for the day to kind of throw out the rules of how we're going to do Q&A and things like that. So Action Coach, Apple Growth Partners, American Express, Advantegrity, CBRE, Group Management Services, Focus CFO, Smart Business Network, and Taft. And then not on here is Lori Kaplan with Eagle Strategies. Just some logo issues that we had to work with compliance, but I do want to highlight that Lori Kaplan is also part of this group as well. So thanks again to everybody there. Dave, I'll turn it over to you to kind of go through the logistics.
Okay, so Mike's going to be facilitating a big part of this afternoon. And I want you to get just a little bit familiarized with Zoom. So if you look down, if you take your cursor and you go down along the bottom, you'll see a Q&A button. And if you hit that Q&A button, it'll pop up and you can you can put questions into there. And then we will monitor those. If you see one that you like that's up there that you also would like answered, hit it with a little like sign. Just give it a little thumbs up. And as we get a few of those, then we'll pop that in as a question for the panel. Okay. And you can also address who in the panel you would like it addressed to in the question as well. Okay. So if there's any questions, just go ahead and put them in there, and I can also chat back to you via the chat room if you need to. But for the questions, we want to have those in the Q&A. So Rich Kuhlman is asking, do you have us muted? And I believe the answer to that is yes, correct? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so at this point then I will introduce Mike Sink. Mike, if you would, go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, thank you for attending this webinar, and thank you to the President's Forum group here for sponsoring this and helping fill the room. We've got some good information for you today about how to think through what's going on with this COVID crisis. So you see the quote at the top of the screen, just play the music from Monty Python's flying circus while I read that. And now for something completely different, because that really is the situation. The game has changed, the rules are unknown and evolving as we speak, and there's not anybody who's really faced something quite like this before or right now. Okay, let me get my cursor on the right thing. So the first question really is, that I have, and what I've shared with people is, where are the experts? Because on anything, there's always experts. And experts are all over the board right now. And it's some, I guess I want to say we're getting inundated with maybe too much expertise. Everyone's got a prescription. Everyone's got an idea about what we should be doing. And it's pretty hard to decide. So I'm just kind of sorting out the experts on this type of situation. So there's medical professionals. They really do understand, especially the ones in these hospitals, how the virus spreads between individuals. And, you know, if you're listening to Dr. Fauci, Sanjay Gupta, and other really, you know, and local hospital people, and they're talking about how it spreads, heed their advice and follow it. I'm not an expert at this, but these guys are right. The second thing is the public health experts. They're experts in how this thing spreads through the whole population and the curve of the spread. They're epidemiologists. They've created models. They're counting and so on. The models are only good as the data being submitted. And one of the things that's frustrating about this is they work on one set of data, the data changes, they've got to come up with a new model. So it's really hard to get a handle on it, but you really have to pay attention for how long this is going to last. Government officials, I think that's a mixed bag. They're catching up like we are. They're responding, and I hope everyone has taken advantage of what they offer. Economists, I think they yes and no in terms of their experience. I think economists, good ones, really do understand recessions and depressions. They haven't run into anything that is a pandemic driven recession in quite some time. I was a history major in college, and I remember going through up until the Great Depression, things were referred to as pandemics, panics, recessions, and depressions. And this is I would say, using that historical terminology, we're in a panic situation. People's behaviors are changing, not necessarily driven by good economic information at all, but by something else. This pandemic is changing consumer behavior dramatically. It's not how the recessions that I've lived through have been formed, a bubble, bad behavior, bad investing, all this other stuff, or just running its course. This is something that's being run by something else, and no one really quite understands that. Taking that further, what I want to say is you're the expert, and you're going to have to rely on your expertise and what you know to get through this. And I think you can figure it out. You are an expert in your business model. You're an expert on your capabilities and what you're able to do within your model. You are definitely, should be, and probably are experts on your customers and how and why they buy. You know the people on your team, their passions and talents, and you know how to lead. And this is what you've got to leverage, the leadership, and then what you know about your business, your team, and your customers to kind of move forward. And to get to the other side is kind of the term I'm using here. Let's move over here. The situation in a nutshell, the simple explanation of what's going on and what's at play here, and this is changing every day. The pandemic is causing hospitals to be overwhelmed around the world, and that's why this what are we calling it? Self-isolation strategy, shelter at home thing is going on, is to keep the hospitals from becoming overwhelmed and affecting everybody beyond just, you know, people who have, the hospitals are being taken up with people with coronavirus and pushing other people out, and they're being overwhelmed. The second thing that happened, because we're doing this stay at home thing, for small and medium businesses, revenue is dropping, the cash is disappearing, and this is going to lead to two things: people unable to get care as the virus spreads, and potentially exponentially. We're seeing that within all of our communities. And at the same time, there are revenue declines, cash is drying up, and debt not being able to service. And ultimately, what is also at play here is there's been a lack of trust in our institutions growing, but there is trust at your organization. Your staff trusts you and expects you to objectively understand the situation and create plans for the company that will protect their business, their jobs, their families, and their communities. So I want to add some business not case studies, but some business principles that play from Jim Collins. I'm hoping most of you are familiar with Jim Collins, the author of 4 really great books: Built to Last, Good to Great, How the Mighty Fall, and Great by Choice. 2 principles right at play that you really have to pay attention to right now is, first, confront the brutal facts. You've got to look at the actual facts and how they lay. And that's tied to another principle called the Stockdale principle, which is about surviving difficult situations. Stockdale was an admiral. Before that, he was a pilot. Now he was recently retired from the Stanford University faculty in leadership. But he experienced the Hanoi Hilton, POW in Vietnam. And a lot of his research has come from that, is that who survived and who didn't survive. And the Stockdale paradox is this: those who were optimistic and thought the best case scenario of their situation and continually focused on what the best thing that could happen, they perished because there was too much hope at play and their hopes got dashed repeatedly. There are those who were pessimistic all the time about everything and felt they could never get out, and they perished because there was no hope. The ones who survived, like Stockdale and McCain and the others that came home, they were able to remain focused on the brutal facts. This is hell, but have just enough optimism that we're going to look for opportunity and we're going to survive this and we're going to get out of this. The war will end. And those are the people that came home. The second principle, or the third principle, is this thing from Great by Choice, which studied startups. There's a principle in there called the 20-mile march. And we're talking about 2 teams, one led by Ernest Shackleton, going to the South Pole. And Shackleton survived and the other team did not. But the Shackleton team survived and survived the whole trip. They were committed to understanding that they had to go 20 miles a day no matter what. And then they stopped and rested and regrouped. And the next day they did the next 20 miles. And the first day, the 20 miles might take them half a day. We're disciplined, we're gonna stop, we're gonna rest because we're gonna need that energy because tomorrow might be worse and the weather worse and it might take us all day, 12 hours to get 20 miles. So we are all used to, in our businesses, to a certain degree, we know what the 20-mile march is for this week or last week and next week based on how our businesses have been organized and how we've been successful. We know what that is. But right now, the 20-mile march is changing right in front of you And what I want to share with you in this webinar is what you need to think through to figure out what that 20-mile march is. There's 6 areas of focus that I really would like us for you to think through. I don't have prescriptions so much as you and your team need to think about these 6 things. So David, do we have any questions or comments or anything that we need to respond to at this point? You're muted, which is a common expression.
We do not have any questions at this point, Mike. I do think it would be good if we could move into the revenue side of things and how we get out of it. I forgot to mention in the beginning that I saw the governor's presentation this morning, and he did mention that we are in a position on May 1st that things are going to start to open up. So we've got a 2-week notice basically that we can start planning for our businesses, and there's some certain things that he wants us to do, making sure that we have our plans in place to that our employees are protected, our customers, and how we're going to interact with our customers and those kinds of things. So
good.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
I want to move forward and talk about this focus, and like my alliteration here, the locus of your focus for moving forward. There's some definite things you need to be thinking about that you might not be thinking about, and we want to bring this to the top. First, the number one focus does need to be health. And I'm not talking about your employees at this point. I think I'm talking about you as the CEO and leader of your company. We don't want to have a void in the leadership of your company because you're not taking care of yourself and your safety and your physical health. So you have to do what you need to do to protect that, because you're the leader of your ship. You need to remain safe. If you're not safe and healthy, you're not going to be able to take care of everyone else, and everyone else is counting on you. The second thing is, this is an extremely stressful time. Mental health is part of that first thing, personal safety and physical health. We're under a lot of stress right now. All of us are, and I would imagine just about everybody on this call has had a day where they just broke down somehow. It was like, I can't talk to anyone else. There may have been tears, anger, all kinds of emotions. That comes with uncertainty. So you've got to protect your mental health. And one of the things that everyone is saying is, if you don't do these things, you're selling yourself short. I've got a couple hints. Are you spending time deciding what you're grateful for? There are things to be grateful for every day in spite of what's going on. Is there someone, not just in the business, but some other way you can be of service to somebody? That helps. Anytime you serve somebody, that helps your mental health. At the end of the day, are you taking a quick inventory and saying, I did 3 things well today? Even if things are going crummy, you did something well. You talked to someone well, you handled a conversation correctly, you made a good decision, you led well. And then can you somehow, some way find something else to divert you from the challenges of work right now, even just for a short time, something outside of work? Those things are real good hints. And I'm sure personal health professionals have a lot more to say about that. The second focus I want to emphasize goes back to the Stockdale principle. And what is the mindset of you and your leadership team? And I suggest that you pull your advisors together, your top leaders on your team, the people you really rely on for great advice, and work through these 3 questions. What's the worst thing could happen? What's the best case? And then what's the real case, or the middle scenario between these 2? And then start focusing on taking that picture of what the middle road looks like, a visible, drawn out picture, and start planning on how you're going to achieve that. From there, you can start setting goals. What does when I say the scenario, what does this look like? What does the worst case scenario for your business look like? What does the best case look like? Okay, what are we actually going to get? It's going to be in the middle. Okay. Focus 3. And this might be one of the more important of the focus after you get the first 2 squared away. Do your numbers and do them now. Do not, most entrepreneurs I've worked with don't like doing the numbers. It's something they reluctantly do at the end of the month. They do some projections once a quarter or something and try to guess, but they pretty much just let this alone and react to it. You have to be proactive right now. And my advice has been, and I've heard from my other coaches in my organization, just do the numbers on your revenue line in the next day or 2 based on the first quarter. What is a 15% drop? What is a 30% drop? What is a 45% drop in revenue? And calculate that out. Then start working on the expense side. What are you going to have to do? What plays do you need to make to break even? This is going to give you a stern sense of reality, but it's also going to give you a lot of confidence about what's coming down the pike. You're going to discover the plays to make, when to make them, and you'll be empowered to act with some certainty and confidence when needed ahead of time, instead of throwing up your hands and, oh my God, the numbers are not here, I've got to do this. Oh my, what am I going to do? You're going to have this figured out, and you can be as proactive as possible to see how you can make those moves and make sure they get done.
Michael, if I could jump in and add
Sure.
a couple of comments to this.
Jim Gilbreth.
Yep, because like many of you, we've got and put together our 2020 budget here at Focus CFO for our business. First 2 months were terrific. And then, as we all know, 30, 40 days ago, the proverbial stuff hit the fan. The first thing we did is exactly this. We got together, dropped our top line revenue number by the numbers that we expected, which were a little higher than this. And then we sat down as a team and worked out each scenario one at a time. And what we see too often with our clients is this is a difficult exercise. You've got to make that model work. You've got to bring it to profitability. You just can't stop and expect that when you get there, you'll be able to deal with it. If it doesn't work on paper, it isn't going to work in practicality. In conjunction with this exercise, just doing the P&L situation, we strongly recommend a 13-week cash flow model, which is a real basic document. Expected inflows at the top, expected outflows on the bottom. Any kind of financial activity that you might have, or financial expectations, maybe a PPP loan, and run that for 13 weeks. You've got to get on top of that every week. You've got to update it every week, create it, update it, work with it. A lot of our clients kind of look at us funny and say things like, I don't want to do this. I don't know what that's even going to look like. Why should I do it? And why should I do it is exactly that comment. You don't know what it looks like, and you need to know exactly what your cash flow is going to be. Cash is king in this situation, as we've all heard. So you've got to get on top of that. You've got to be able to see what it looks like 13 weeks out. Week 6, it shows you're going to go negative. You've got to make changes today. Don't wait. Get on top of it and get some help. Reach out. Maybe it's your CPA. Maybe it's a financial advisor. Maybe it's a business coach. But get some help and get those numbers to work for you. Otherwise, it isn't going to work in practicality.
Yeah. I echo everything Jim says. And I also say, after you've figured out the revenue projections, pull the team together and get their advice on what those plays are. It's really, really important to be transparent about this. And I'm going to move that forward to another slide in just a second that explains why. For your benefit, I've been doing some other webinars. I've kind of created a series out of this. This is the first webinar. The second webinar is called Cash Resiliency, 25 ways to get a handle on your cash flow, specific things. And if you look at my website, and that information will be later, I've recorded that webinar as this one is, and take a look at it. There's a lot there that can stimulate your brain and help your team figure out where you can find the plays you need to make to match what the revenue line is going to develop. You should be able to just work from the numbers. 15, 30, 45% will give you a pretty good grasp on what's going to happen on the gross profit line, and then move it down. Okay, expenses, what do we got to change? So I'm going to move forward unless we got some questions there, David.
We do not at this point.
Okay. Number 4, communication and leadership has to become a really, really big focus. And my 3 points at the beginning here is your team is worried and panicked about their health, their job, and bills they have to pay. And this is new. They're panicked about this like never before. You're fighting that. They're also, that worry and panic is also being fed by large amounts of inaccurate, conspiracy-oriented, all kinds of social media and people making comments on there that don't make sense. You're fighting that. You know what's going on in your business and can be very truthful about it. Your staff is mentally overwhelmed. That's the new reality for the next month. Everything has changed in our lives right now, and you can't ignore that. That means you have to be a stronger leader or pump up your leader activities. Hopefully you're already a strong leader. And the second part of that is turn up the communication level. Make sure everyone knows your immediate objective is to get to the other side of the pandemic in good shape. That's the immediate short-term goal, probably through the end of this quarter. Okay.
Now let me, Mike, if it's all right, let me comment a little bit on that. As the panelists know, I'm working on my dissertation in leadership right now at Creighton University, and leadership is such an important part. And this really gives companies today an opportunity to really kind of pull everyone together or divide them apart. And pulling everyone together, finding that commonality, that thing that you can work on, not just within the corporation, but even outside of the corporation, perhaps instituting some kind of corporate social responsibility or servant leadership project that you guys can do as an organization, really helps bring in more of a family factor in, and gets people working together towards another goal, towards that goal of what you're gonna look like on the other side of this. And the other side of this is, we start kicking out of this in 2 weeks. So we've got a little bit of time to plan. It could be something as silly as, making masks during breaks, where your group takes a break and they work on making masks, or they're collecting food for a food drive. Any of those things could be things that you can use as a way to give back and create some feel goods within the company.
One of the things, David, your comment spurred a thought in my mind. One of the things I want to make clear about leadership in this situation, about what I don't mean. What I don't mean is you got to figure it all out yourself. That's too much pressure.
Right.
Your people are smart. They want to see you get to the other side. They know where changes can be made. You need to pull them together, and your leadership's going to be tied to, setting the objective and then saying, all right, guys, how are we going to get there?
Right.
And that this opportunity to do this can change the culture of your company to a positive thing. They want to go with you.
Right.
You need to be pointing where we're going to go and relying on them to help you get it going. The other things you got to communicate is be very clear about what's going to happen to somebody when they get sick. People are going to get sick. They're going to get quarantined. One of my clients is like, all of a sudden, their work crew, they're just worried about their work crews all of a sudden be gone one day because someone got exposed, and they're not sick, but they got quarantined for 14 days. Communicate also, after you get a plan together, what are the actions the company is taking to protect itself and their jobs? Tell them about what you got from PPP, from EIDL, all kinds of actions. And notice my point at the bottom, often and repeatedly, and I almost want to say it this way: if they're not making fun of you about all this communication, you haven't done it enough. Okay? Okay, let's move on. Cash and profitability. And Jim commented about this, but on cash and profitability, you have to know how much cash you have at all times. And in the past, I've always said to my clients, once a week, get a cash report out. Just know where all the money is in all the banks and balances and credit lines, so you know what's going on. That's good. I'm saying look at that every day. Doing the numbers over earlier, it says determine the revenue decline you can cope with and when to take your actions. Really look at how your supply chains are going to impact your revenues. Supply chains are not as good as they used to be right now. They're a mess. And then the fourth point here, and I'm going to go to the fifth point and then turn it over to a couple other people on this. Right now is the time to talk to your creditors about all of this. Okay, if you know, a lot of business owners are hesitant to talk to their bankers or their accounting firms. You know, they talk a different language. Well, now's the time to talk to them, not 3 months from now when the situation is worse. You really got to clue them in as to what the road to hoe is in front of you. And you have them be partners. They can do so much for you, but if you don't talk to them. Now, a piece of practical advice that our coaches came up with, or they learned from a lot of their clients, have a COVID-19 line item on your operating statement so that you can put down expenses incurred because of all of this. And that's going to help you down the road. Now, David, someone else was going to jump in here, either Jim or Dominic.
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts to add to this commentary, Michael. You know, in here you mentioned supply chain. I would also point out that if you haven't, you need to get on top of your customers. Reach out to your customers, find out what kind of shape they're in, find out what your opportunities are with them. You know, you are part of their supply chain, and so they may have other opportunities for you, but you won't know unless you're communicating with them. The other thing about talking with your customers, you know, we talked about what's our revenue going to look like, and none of us know, but talking to your customers is going to give you your best read possible. So make sure you're reaching out to your customers. Now's the time to do it. As far as creditors go, you know, in our role at Focus CFO, we're the financial strategy and commentary going on within a business oftentimes. And too many times we see adversarial relationships between the business owner and their banker. And frankly, we have a communication and a conversation with the business owner that they need to really understand the banker can be and should be one of your most trusted advisors. That banker is your mouthpiece and your advocate within the bank to help you get what you need from the bank to be able to grow your business and operate your business in a positive fashion. So I had a personal experience with a business I was working with that had a catastrophic issue. lost about 80% of its revenue in 30 days. Ended up as a special asset with one of our local banks and found myself introduced to my new best friend, the workout banker. Turned out that it was a very positive relationship, and the gentleman is still a friend of mine. We were able to get through that situation. And after we exited that business and after that banker left the bank, we got back together and had a cup of coffee. And in that conversation, the banker related to me, he said, Jim, you don't know how rare it was for us to extend you an additional line of credit on top of what you already owed the bank when you were in the workout situation. So I asked him a very straightforward question. I said, so Dave, why'd you do it? If it's so rare, what was so unique about our situation? And he said, well, first and foremost, most business owners don't understand the bank doesn't want your business. You're the expert in your business, as Michael was talking about earlier, and you're the most likely individuals that are going to get the business back headed in a positive direction. He said, secondly, you guys had a plan. You had your arms around the business, and you could demonstrate that by presenting us with cash flow models, with forecasts, and understanding the business and being able to communicate it. He said, thirdly, you communicated with us often. You didn't wait for me to come looking for you. You communicated on a weekly basis. You gave us updates as we needed them. You had the information that we needed. And lastly, Jim, he said, you guys never surprised us. So those are the four things that I have never forgotten when dealing with the bank, is make sure that you have a plan, make sure you can communicate it with the banker regularly, make sure that you're reaching out to them and not making them come to you, and primarily don't ever surprise your banker. They can be and will be one of your most trusted advisors if you let them.
I don't know of a banker that likes a surprise. They're not risk takers, but you can put them in play for you if you're sharing what's going on, and they can do a lot for you, even analytical work for you that you might not possibly be able to do yourself. I loved your comment about customers. You know, I had a client a few years ago who had a client that went into bankruptcy, and all his competitors, my client's competitors, cut him off instantly. And, you know, with some talk from me and a few other people, we got him to say, look at these guys as a partner and figure out how you can keep them in business. And they worked out a plan where we'll still take your orders. You got to pay up front for new orders. You got to work off all the old invoices one at a time over 6 months. They saved them. After it came out of this, what happened is, who do you think gets most of the business? My client. The other people ran the other way. Okay.
Michael, I'd like to add to that conversation just a little bit of good news for the outsiders that are watching this webinar. We are finding in real time that unlike prior downturns, there really is this esprit de corps out there. We are seeing landlords give breaks to tenants. We are seeing lenders give breaks to borrowers. I think the entire business community knows that unlike prior downturns, this really is different. And we're seeing a lot of breathing room being given by lenders, by landlords, by creditors, et cetera. And most people who are watching this webinar probably see this from two different angles. On the one hand, they've got their creditors that they need to be upfront with, couldn't agree more. Nobody likes surprises. Have these conversations in advance, have a plan, be honest, be forthcoming. But on the other hand, you are a creditor, most likely, to another group of people. And maybe the golden rule should apply. To the extent that you are looking for some love from your creditors, you should be maybe thinking about giving that same love back to the people that might be owing you some money right now and might be having the same struggles. But we are seeing right now a really high level of esprit de corps in this context. We're seeing a lot of creditors, landlords give a lot of breathing room to the people that that are struggling right now. It's a good news.
Out of curiosity for Jim and Dominic, do you see there being a tremendous increase in bankruptcies over the next 12 to 24 months as we go through this?
I think it goes without saying that there are going to be businesses that just will not be able to survive for a variety of reasons. We all know, as many of us are sort of intermediaries, service providers dealing with business owners, we see the industries that this is hurting more than others. And we also see industries that are getting help more than others. So where this may have been a point in the presentation where we were going to talk about the Paycheck Protection Program, as probably everybody on this call knows, there is now no money left. So the early birds were able to get those loans. Some people, through no fault of their own, maybe they were with a bank that wasn't as fast as another bank, they just weren't able to get these loans. So yes, I think we are going to see some bankruptcies and reorganizations. I don't know how we can.
Yeah, I would agree with Dominic's commentary there. I would also say that if you dig in and confront the brutal reality and get your information together and see where you sit, the esprit de corps that Dominic also mentioned, and reach out to the people that can help you. Don't go it alone. Get the help that you need early and see what your options are. I mean, undoubtedly, we're going to lose a few out of this situation, but I suspect that we'll lose some that we probably wouldn't have had to lose because people didn't reach out early enough to get some help.
Now, after all that downer talk, I want to move to something a little bit more optimistic here. There is one last focus here that I think if you overlook this, you're going to miss opportunities. There is a lot of opportunity happening in any kind of downturn, any kind of dysfunction, any kind of disruption. There's opportunity there. Everything we've talked about so far has been talking about mitigating risks. But spend some time, set aside time, devote time with your team to analyzing opportunities, okay? This recession is going to end. What can you do now to improve margins? There are opportunities to improve margins overall by taking a look at your cost of goods sold and figuring out maybe you can get your product or service delivered faster. Okay. Maybe there are by looking at your customers and taking your expertise on why they buy and your understanding of the problems they have beyond what you sell and serve them, you can find additional offerings that will improve your margins. Okay. You certainly can increase who your customers are during this time from a marketing point of view. And when I say increase customers, you may not make a lot of money on them in the short term, but when this is over and you've helped them and you have more relationships, you come out of it strong. There's opportunity coming out of it strong. I would suggest everyone look at something called the cash conversion cycle, because that's going to force you to look at improvements in each of the major processes of your business. And the idea is to shorten up the whole cash conversion cycle, which would be the marketing and selling process is the first part, the inventory or make the product part, the delivery is the third process, and then collecting money. The whole time you want to shorten that down as much as you can, but if you can focus on each one of these things, you can find improvements that will increase your margins, save you some cash, hey, potentially change your business model, all kinds of things that will help you out. If nothing else, this is, in past recessions, I've always used the term, this could be the pause that refreshes your business. Learn something, fix something, gussy up your business, make it look better. Tomorrow morning, I'm doing an additional webinar on titled, What's Your Pivot? Time to pivot. everyone's going to have to pivot a little bit in the short term, probably in the long term too. And what does that really mean? So it's what this is about: opportunity, finding opportunity, and how to pivot.
That's a really good point. It's a really good point.
I'm pivoting.
We're all
Okay.
pivoting.
Michael, I think another important piece of that is one of the things that I've been talking to my clients about is now is a great time to tackle some of those projects that you've always wished you had more time to do. Now is a great time to sort of reinvest in your business without the distractions of your business as a going concern.
Yeah, I'm
And
doing that as I'm a one-man show.
Yep. And it really is an opportunity here. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity. While you spoke about very specific sort of financial kind of opportunities, it is also a great opportunity to establish some tremendous goodwill. Because we're going to see a lot of companies, and when this is all over, whenever that is, we're going to look back and we're going to see how companies behave. And we're going to see how leaders behave. And this is an opportunity to really, with that kind of retrospective look, be one of those people, be one of those leaders or one of those companies that everybody else looks back at and says, you got to give those guys credit for the way they handled this, for the way they behaved, for the way they acted. So this is a tremendous opportunity to build brand, to build goodwill, to tackle those projects that you always wish you had more time to do. And the other sort of from a competitive point of view, the interesting thing about this situation and prior sort of downturns is it's a tremendous level setter. So everybody's getting knocked down. And I know we've got another slide that's going to talk about this. Actually, I see it up right now, return on luck. But everybody got knocked down. Everybody got hit hard. And this is your opportunity to out-recover your competition, to outthink your competition, to out-strategize your competition, and to really, to the extent that you may not have been 1, 2, or 3, this is your chance to catch up and maybe even pass the guys that were ahead of you before.
Yeah. That's a great point, Dominic. I look back on the 20 years that I've had my company, and I started in January 2001, and my business does retained executive search. And, we were going like this. Our first client was National City Bank. We were doing work with Dental Care Partners. We were growing like crazy to the point that in 9 months, I was looking at leasing out 14,000 square feet of office space. And it was just a phenomenal opportunity. I did this gut check, and 11 days later, September 11th happened. And our business went from this to this overnight. And we had one client that kept us going because they saw the light and they still needed to fill some, high level positions. But we had to reinvent ourselves at that point. And we started to do some different things. We started to do marketing consulting. I had 2 very good web designers and e-commerce people on board with me. And we started to go back to our clients and say, hey, we can help you on the revenue side. We can help redesign your website. We can do these things for you. And that's how we stayed afloat. And we made it until 2008. And the same thing happened again in 2008. And we reinvented ourselves then. And I started to do more executive coaching, and I started a CEO group. We were working through Vistage, and now we have something called NEO CEO. And we get together every week, and I work on a one-to-one basis with each CEO. And then once a month we get together, and we've now gone to a similar format to these where we're having virtual board meetings for our CEO group. And it's a great way, but all those things we reinvented. Yeah. They were just trying to find different opportunities. And so I'm still looking for a couple ideas after this one. So if anyone has it,
Dominic, I like how you said it, and I've forgotten how you said it, but this is the principle. What I find really funny, or not funny, but intriguing, is all these books from Jim Collins that I read years ago are all of a sudden more relevant right now. And this one principle is he talks about in Great by Choice really applies here like never before in the world. In the book, if you know his methodology of research, he finds the 2 companies, one did great, the other didn't do so great. What's the difference? And what he found in great by choice is these companies that he was studying, the two companies together got the same bad and good luck as each other. The one that became great responded to the bad luck and the good luck better than their competing company. So how you respond to this bad luck, which we've all gotten, is going to determine your success. And this term I love, like return on ROI, return on investment, return on luck. This is your chance to do that. I'm going to start. We're on the home stretch here. I'm going to
Any
move
questions
to the
for
next.
those of you that joined us late? If there's a Q&A button on the bottom of the Zoom, if you have questions, you can post those there, and I'd be more than happy to present them to the group.
So let's review some of the things, the principles you've really got to be looking at. Confront your brutal facts. Do not shy away from them. Do not run away from them. You are in the process of finding your middle road through between what's the worst and what's the best. Determine your new 20-mile march, the new thing. Develop a plan, the new thing you've got to get done every day, every week to get through this. And in doing so, create your own return on luck, and don't go it alone. This is not a time to go it alone. My coaching organization that I belong to, I'm a member of a group of coaches called Gravitas Impact. The name of my company is Rock and Sand. It's also the title of my strategy book. Our organization has come up with the COVID-19 Agile Growth Checklist, and it's designed strictly for this situation. It's a tool that will help you keep these areas of focus front and center. And using this tool will help you create no blame, no shame discussions that will make sure you're facing all the issues. It'll keep you on track, you won't miss things. And I would recommend that ideally this is used at least weekly with your leadership team, your weekly meeting. Now, we focus in our coaching organization on the 7 attributes of agile growth. I'm not going to go into them except to say what they are: leadership, talent, strategy, execution, customers, systems, and profits. And each section of this checklist has 5 statements. And the idea behind it is you go through the whole checklist, hand this out to everyone on your team before the meeting. Maybe give it to them Friday for the meeting on Monday. Have them fill this out in some quiet time and check off the statements that are true. So I'm going to read the systems ones if you guys can't squint that well. Is this true? Top core processes are reviewed, visually charted, and improved. 2, accountability for processes and outcomes are updated. Is that true or not? Internal change, leadership, and management principles and tools are sharpened. 4, a tactical 90-day plan for implementing digital and virtual tools is built. A crisis management plan and emergency procedures are up to date. These are all things that affect systems. On this checklist, there's 5 statements like that in each area. And the idea is everyone checks it off, and then you have a discussion about why people are checking off these things differently. And it's objective, and it's on a piece of paper. And that's where it brings the no blame, no shame, is like, why is Bob only checking 2 of these and I got 4? This becomes a reality check. Discuss what you've learned, decide on actions, and create a who, what, when for the week, and rinse and repeat this at your next meeting. And over time, this checklist can be narrowed down to your new reality. Our clients are finding this to be incredibly helpful. This sheet can be downloaded from my website. It's free. I'd say take a screenshot. Here's links to where I'm going to be posting the slides from today and the video and the checklist and other tools. That's a second link is I'm doing other webinars. The series is called Get to the Other Side. You go to that link, you'll find the schedule. As I say, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock Central Time, I am going through what the heck is a pivot and how do you do it well? And how do you make sure you don't do it badly? If you want to have a talk with me, click this last one. I'll be happy to talk to you for 30 minutes just to help you get your arms around things. I said earlier, I'm pivoting. Here's 2 pivots I'm making because of the situation. I am moving to a pay what you can afford coaching model until we get to the other side. It's going to require a frank discussion about your cash position and what we might possibly address to improve your company. We'll set some outcomes and decide how valuable that is and how we would do it. And then we'll set a fee that you feel is a fair and affordable. This is all written down at that website. I'm also decided people can't get together. And for the near term future, I'm going to have no agenda office hours, CEOs only. I'm not going to have agenda. Come to vent, to share, discuss anything you want. Bring an adult beverage if you want or not. That's up to you. But there's a link for that. So those are some pivots I'm making because of the situation.
Coming up on the end of our time here.
Yeah. Final thing, here's the list of the people and how to get in touch with them, names and phone numbers. These are the names and phone numbers of everybody who is our sponsors of the Entrepreneurship Institute and the President's Forum in Cleveland. So here, again, get the slides. You'll have all the phone numbers you need. And this is how you get in touch with all of these people. Thanks again for our sponsors. There they are. We reviewed them earlier. Dominic, John, David, Rob, thank you for being here with me and helping me get through this. Good luck to you all.
Thanks, Mike.
And that's the end of our webinar. Please call us, reach out. We're here to help. Don't go through this alone.
Thanks, Mike.
Very good, guys.
Give me a second here. I got to figure out how to stop the recording.
I can't wait to go get